Let's go ahead and put this video up on here. Starts off pretty humorous, but I am going to skip past the sitcom just to kind of save time. So, the video is a discussion video about why Mortal Kombat 1 failed as a game, and also why the support around the game lapsed ultimately. The game sold well. Do not get it twisted. This game sold very well. It still did well as a video game. But critically and long-term support-wise, it failed. It failed to sustain its casual player base and its pro player base, but it did well on the initial sales, initial impressions. But after that week and a half to 2 week honeymoon, week and a half to 2 week honeymoon period, the rose tinted glasses came off and people really started seeing huge problems with the game right off the bat. It had a really good launch in terms of not just marketing and appeal and initial reactions, but as soon as people started moving away from it and started really looking at the game, past that first week, the issues started mounting quickly. And before long, the sentiment around the game really collapsed. Casual players began to leave in droves, despite the fact that they purchased the game in large amounts. But more competitive players didn't want to play the game because of the problems with it. Not just the gameplay, because I do think the gameplay is pretty good. I didn't play the game myself. I didn't buy into it because I knew right off the bat the game was going to be flawed. I could tell right off the bat with the marketing strategy. I'm like, oh, this game is not complete. It's not finished. I knew that like something to do with Suicide Squad probably blindsided the game's development. So I didn't trust it, and because of that, I didn't buy. I watched a lot of gameplay, a lot of YouTubers playing the game, and it looks great. It looks like a fun game. So gameplay wasn't really necessarily the problem, even though the tag mechanic is divisive for a certain part of the audience. The problem with the game was it felt half-baked and complete. Luckily, they did a good job with the story mode, because the story mode, even though the writing is not the greatest, I don't particularly love the writing. It's a good story mode. Luckily, they finished the story mode, but it wasn't enough to carry the game by itself. The conquest mode is the big one I heard a lot of problems with it. The board game mode, whatever it is, that's what it's called. I know that one really bothered a lot of people. So we'll get into the subject, but let's see what TrueUnderdawg's analysis of the problems with the game are.
Greed ruined Mortal Kombat 1, and today you'll learn the full story. However you feel about Mortal Kombat 1, love it or hate it, I think we can all see how divided the fanbase is. Mortal Kombat's reputation has been comboed pretty hard by this game. In other words, many fans are upset about how this game was handled. From overpriced DLC to absurdly priced microtransactions, very grindy game modes, and so on. And honestly,
I think that this is what did the death blow to the game's reputation. But more so the good faith that people had with the game. I think a lot of people were willing to be more for them to do updates for the game, but due to the massive controversy it did and microtransaction history with the game, I think it did insurmountable amount of damage that they could not recover from because they were always playing catch up.
it's a real shame because I think Mortal Kombat 1 has incredible gameplay and could have been the best Mortal Kombat game. But unfortunately, greed handicapped this game out of the game.
So here's the thing. I think it would have been a great Mortal Kombat. I think it had a potential to be a great Mortal Kombat. I don't think it would ever be. I think that MKX, even though I never played it, the hype and excitement around that game when it released and how long that hype sustained itself, and especially with the character DLCs that Alien and the Predator being involved in the story, and Jason Voorhees, and how they were involved in the not the story, but the gameplay loop, really captured a lot of interest and really like sustained itself throughout its lifetime. So I think that it was never going to measure up to Mortal Kombat X. I don't think that there is going to be another Mortal Kombat X for a while. I think that when they start with the next Mortal Kombat game, which will probably be a while from now, they'll probably move on to now. But if they decide to make another Mortal Kombat game, they're either going to go back to like mimicking Mortal Kombat X in order to like satisfy their player base, or they're going to go something totally unique, totally out of the realms of what they've done before, completely different. Personally, I don't think it one way or another with the gameplay needs to change. I think that you really need to add in a new mode that changes up the gameplay flow. I think an actual conquest mode, an RPG conquest mode, would really appeal to the casual player. I think competitive players are willing to be a lot more patient with gameplay flow as long as you give them a way to express them, have fun. And I don't think that's something that they really struggle with MKX or MK11. Or not 11, MK1. MK11 tend to struggle with that. My gripe with that. The game is a great, neutral fighter game. It's great for neutral fighter. My issue with the game is that there's not a lot of actual player expression. Even when they added that into the game later, the character expression isn't that wide because of the fact that the mechanics that are in the game reduce choices.
And that's no exaggeration. You'll see very soon how greed crippled this game from the starting line. You very likely noticed that my voice is gone. I'm going to...
And here's the thing. There's no doubt about that. Greed absolutely what did the most amount of damage. More so than anything else. It was not the gameplay design. It was not the story modes. It was not the lack of single-player content, even though there was some amount of single-player content. It's just not what I would consider entertaining or good quality one. But it's not those things. What did the damage to the game was how bad it kept fumbling the post-launch stuff with its microtransactions and its greedy approach. But more importantly, how, even before the game launched, they announced the game's cost before they even showed the gameplay. That was the big red flag for me. I saw that when they announced the cost of the game before showing any gameplay at all. I was like, nope, that's a bad sign. That's not a good sign.
Try my very best to finish the video anyway, because it's a very important lesson on how not to run a video game. Anyone responsible for the decisions mentioned in this video should never be allowed to touch any video game ever again, because whatever game they work on next is also going to be ruined by them as well. Even though the core elements of Mortal Kombat 1 are fantastic in my opinion, like the title of this video says, greed ruined Mortal Kombat 1.
And here's the thing, I think that what he's talking about is whoever was involved with the decision makings is someone that's clearly above and someone that doesn't care about the brand. They are making a major they're fumbling the financial end of this as well as the marketing behind this, because they're only looking at the short-term gain as opposed to what video games are about, which is bringing happiness to people. If you craft a video game with the intent to make money, it has to be able to produce happiness. Without that, the game is useless, and it will not produce. And you'll just waste money. And we've seen that time and time again.
First up, we have the release date. That's right, the greed starts here, because Mortal Kombat 1 was not ready to launch in September, nor was it originally planned to in the first place.
Yeah, and I mentioned this a while back, that I think that the reason why this game released the way it did was because of Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad, when it released in a way that scared investors, because it didn't just release, but it also it had a bad backlash on its announcement when it was revealed, when the trailer was revealed. And there was this huge backlash from the internet, but as well as people in general, they were not interested in the game. They gave Suicide Squad an extra year of development, that way it could polish up its gameplay. But that was mismanagement. What they should have done is acknowledge the game was not going to succeed. If you were going to recoup the cost, then recoup the cost, but don't give that game a year. Give this game a year. But they were thinking about the short term, and they wanted to make that money in that quarter of that year. They didn't want to lose those investors. But in doing so, you hurt What's more important than your investors, honestly, is your consumers, your customers. Don't burn your customers, because then they won't buy your shit. They don't trust you then.
And that became clear to everyone playing the game in those early days. The data in training mode was wrong, you couldn't even map the moves, the online did not work properly, there was no crossplay, even the story mode had glitches, and so on. The game was obviously meant to drop next year in 2024, but somebody up top, very likely the game producers, rushed it out of the door and forced it to release in September. And why did they do that? Because they wanted the money right away. In other words, they got greedy. I found it great.
And the reason for this is that I think that the reason why they got greedy was because of there was a leaked conference call from the executives at Brothers where they were saying talking up to their investors saying we have a huge list of games that we are very confident will sell very well. Suicide Squad will definitely do well. Mortal Kombat will definitely do. We have a whole host of games that are going to do really well. Any of these games did not, with the exception of Mortal Kombat. So I think that was a big component.
Great article on GameFAQs that does a fantastic job explaining what likely happened to this game and why it was forced to release months earlier than originally planned. So feel free to pause the video if you want to, but to keep things simple, many other video games that were owned by the same company that owns NetherRealm and Mortal Kombat 1 had underperformed that year. And of course, that looks really bad to investors. So now Mortal Kombat 1 had to drop early to make up those costs and to make the earnings for 2023 look way better.
This is why I have an issue with management with these games, because the issue at hand is that when they do this stuff, they're sacrificing their consumers in the ends of lining their own pockets. And why are they doing that? You may think like, well, just make your customers happy and they'll pay you more. Of course they will. But the issue is that they're only there for a short amount of time. They know as managers, as CEOs, as people that are producers and stuff like that, we're only here for a short amount of time. We're only here for the next 5 or 10 years. Why the fuck do I care about, keeping my consumers happy when I can line my pockets right now?
Ever since Mortal Kombat 1 was forced to drop early, NetherRealm
it's a fucked
has
way
been
of
playing
thinking.
catch
It's not
up
right
the entire
at all.
time. Some of the game's week 1 issues would still not be fixed until many months later, like the crossplay feature. This was a terrible start for Mortal Kombat 1 because players were immediately upset. They were basically tricked into buying an unfinished game, all because the people up top wanted to get paid before 2024. Greed had already begun to ruin this game. Next up, let's talk about the costume prices. If you turn on Mortal Kombat 1 today, then the costumes cost around $5.
Costumes, okay.
Which is similar to other fighting games like Tekken 8 and also Street Fighter 6.
And here's the thing. Many of these other fighting games do this, absolutely. But I think that the reason why this game got so much backlash is that it was egregious, not because of the fact that it was just doing costumes at high prices. It was also doing color palettes and using that in-game currency system in a very aggressive way. And like Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 definitely have aggressive amount, but they were never as bad as this one. This one really like pushed the limit and really upset people and bothered their consumers in particular. I think that is something that you really need to pay attention to about, like, you should always do a vibe check with your consumers when you're pushing out microtransactions. Do something small first to see where their tolerance level is pricing before you piss them off. Because once you piss them off, it's really hard to quiet down that anger. Because it lingers for a long time and it feels, toxic, and it corrodes everything in the process.
However, it did not start this way. For the first few months of Mortal Kombat 1, these costumes cost $10.
Yep.
That's right, an entire...
And some of the costumes were not the problem. Some of them were I think there was an $8 palette swap. I don't recall entirely. There was just color swaps that you had to pay $8 for.
Deck of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, or at least that's the price I paid as a kid. To put it another way, if you bought only 6 of these costumes, then you would be purchasing the game a second time. Whoever's idea it was to charge this much, you managed to upset all of the players all over again. And if I worked at WB, you would be replaced immediately.
And here's the thing, you didn't just upset the players, all the players that... What you did is that you broke faith and broke trust with your consumers, that is really hard to buy back. It's really hard to buy back. If you want to buy it back, you better be willing to spend a lot of money to reinvest into consumers. It's going to take a lot more now to get their trust back.
But sadly I don't, which means you're free to make more dumb decisions like this in the future. So hopefully you work on a different game at the very least. My fingers are crossed you'll be working on a different genre. Stay away from fighting games. But I digress. Charging this much for skins right out of the gate made the message very clear. Mortal Kombat 1 was all about money. This game's main priority is to earn those dollar bills. And as mentioned earlier, it's because other games owned by WB had flopped terribly, and now Mortal Kombat 1 is expected to cover those costs. And I want to make the record clear, I do not think that NetherRealm was responsible for these prices.
And here's the thing, I think it's a real shame that Mortal Kombat got the blowback from this. If it was Injustice that did this, I think a lot of people would have been able to correlate the Suicide Squad game, Justice game, being fucked over by upper man from WB. And I think that people would have been a little bit, not necessarily forget. I think that, you know, the fans of the but they definitely would have been a little bit more tough. The thing about Mortal Kombat is that Mortal Kombat has been a video game with a huge legacy that has been very consumer friendly. It has always been a video game. It's never had a high reputation as a fighting game. As a fighting game, it's always kind of struggled to a certain degree, where it's considered a very casual thing, with some competitive elements spun into it. So there's always a strong competitive scene around it, but never a massive one. Never something that competes with Street Fighter. That said, the reason why Mortal Kombat has maintained its relevancy throughout its entire lifetime and had such a cultural impact is due to the fact that the game represents a very consumer, that if buy the game, you're buying a good video game regardless. Even if you don't like the fighting in the game, even if you don't enjoy the story in the game, even if you don't enjoy these elements, you're at least getting your money. You know that the $60 that you're paying. And for me, the fact that I think they charged up to $70 for this one, and they still allowed it on previous generations, that to me was oh, okay, that's fucked. I knew immediately right then and there when they announced the of the game before they actually showed any gameplay and the price was what it was. I was okay, something's wrong with the game. That's a huge. So that's usually when it's happening.
Really don't. It was likely one of the producers or managers. You get the idea. So do not get mad at NetherRealm about these prices. Get
I
mad
agree
at
with
them
that.
For waiting an entire year to buff Natara.
I guarantee the
and
developers
Haven.
had nothing
Alright,
to do
but
with
now
it.
Time
It
for
wasn't
a
their
funny
call.
Side story. At one point, Mortal Kombat 1 announced a new holiday-themed stage. Johnny Cage's mansion was going to get a Halloween makeover. It was completely free and also looked really cool. So as a result, fans were excited until they learned it was only temporary. That's right. Originally,
I didn't know
new
this.
stage was going to be for a limited time only.
I knew that
means,
the
once
stage
again,
was
the
getting
fans were
reworked a little.
upset. This
in terms of
game
visual
could not
look,
get
but
any
I didn't know it was
cheaper.
limited.
The costumes way
That's
too
fucked.
expensive. Any DLC way too expensive, and the free stuff only temporary. Now, thankfully, somebody with a brain saw the outrage and fixed this problem by making the stage permanent. And that's great, but it has me wondering, why was the stage temporary to begin with? Did they plan on charging for this later on in the future? I bet they did. I would not be surprised if the original plan was to give us a taste of this new stage, then take it away and bring it back, but this time you have to pay for it. Ooh.
$15, probably something like that. These games have gotten so predatory in the way that they approach it. Almost really disgusting now. It's getting too manipulative and really insulting.
Ooh, that's right, little gamer. Did you enjoy that Halloween stage? It can be yours again. Just spend money this time. My voice is already going. This is not good. But then we have the holiday finishing moves. That's right. Mortal Kombat 1 was charging us for finishing moves, which had been done before in Mortal Kombat X, I think. However, the prices were much lower, or possibly even free. My memory is not the best. My point is, DLC finishing moves were not a new idea, but they were very lowly priced, so nobody cared. But not this time, baby. $12. That's right, $12 for just one of these bad boys. But get this, the backlash from fans
I remember
was so
the executions
fast and so swift that the price got dropped immediately.
The fatalities.
Players were raging out all over social media, and
you
it
can never
actually
do this
worked
with a
this
Mortal
time.
Kombat
So
game.
now, if you pay
You
$12
never
and
charge. You can never charge fatalities ever again. That can never happen again. And the reason for that is that you can always add fatalities, but if you charge for them, you're taking away the very reason, or the very, like, you're taking away a core mechanic game that brought people to it in the. If you're gonna do it, then don't do it at all. That's the thing. Just don't even add new fatalities if you're gonna even attempt, because it'll just upset people. Do it with costumes. Do it with colors. Very arbitrary shit, but nothing that relates to the gameplay. Even though the gameplay isn't giving you actual pay to win. It's not giving you a pay to win experience with the game at all. It's something that you're paying for because it's part of the gameplay experience.
Advance, you would get all 3 of the holiday finishers instead of just 1. But keep in mind that 2 of them were not even available yet, just the Halloween finisher, which was also frustrating. Just charge $2 or $3 for finishing moves individually as they arrive. Don't be greedy and demand that players buy all 3 of them at once, because when you do that, it sends a clear message that all you care about is money. These holiday finishers are not for the fans at all. It's just a fast way to make money by overcharging those same fans. This was another massive blunder for Mortal Kombat 1. Everyone earlier who bashed the game for being greedy and anti-gamer had just been validated, and anyone left who did still trust the game was having their faith tested. So now we come to the final nail in the coffin. If you thought $10 for one costume was crazy, then hold your breath. And if you thought $12 for one holiday finisher was crazy, then hold on to your butts.
Chaos Reign. Whole new game. I remember when they did this exact same thing at 11. I think it was only $40. Not only $40. Outrage. They increased it by 10 more comparison. You think you would have learned your lesson from the events of the first game, from Mortal Kombat 11, which granted, the DLC to the game was fantastic in terms of what it offered, but the price was already should have been like $1. Like, should have been able to purchase everything separately. Expansion content should have been $15 at most. While the characters should have been like $5 a pop.
Bundle. New story mode, 6 new characters, and a bunch of new costumes. Everything fans wanted, and also what this game needed to keep itself alive. And all it cost you was $40. That's right, and depending on where you lived, it was even more expensive. Well, surely we can buy the characters separately, right? Nope, you gotta buy all 6 of them right now. Otherwise, you're waiting months until you can play any of them. And by the way, players didn't even know there'd be an option to buy the characters separately later on, because NetherRealm never mentioned that. WB.
They intentionally do that. They intentionally do that to make you purchase it, pre-order it before you actually learn about what you. They did the same thing more.
Never mentioned that. Or in other words, for all players new, if you wanted to play any of these characters, then you had to buy the entire DLC bundle. There was no way to play them separately. Okay, well, what if I want to buy story mode separately? Can I do that? Just buy story mode? No, of course you can't. You have to buy the entire bundle. If you only want to play the story mode and don't care about these DLC characters, then too bad. You gotta pay for the whole thing or get nothing at all. And the same thing goes for the new costumes. There was no way to purchase any of this content separately. It was all or nothing. Pay the $40 or get no new content at all.
When Mortal Kombat 11 did the same shenanigans, I didn't buy the DLC.
Nobody trusted
I
this
waited
game
till there was
anymore.
a
The producers
steep discount.
hadn't made their
It
message
was down to
clear.
$20.
This game would never offer fair prices for anything. It was all about earning them money. NetherRealm tried to fix things as best they could by offering lots of free content afterwards, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. Most Mortal Kombat players already had their faith beaten to a pulp. Even players today who are waiting working on Combat Pack 3 are still woefully aware of how expensive it's all going to be. And just like before, there likely won't be an option to buy the characters separately. And the same goes for Story Mode Part 3 and also the costumes. All because the people up top who control this game want money above all else, even if that means permanently damaging the game's reputation. Plenty of players still enjoy Mortal Kombat 1, myself included, but it's still frustrating to look back on how horribly this game was handled, and it's not even a matter of hindsight. Any normal person would have known not to charge $10 for a costume. Any normal person would have known to not charge $10 for an announcer. Any normal person never would have charged $12 for one holiday finisher, and certainly no rational person would ever try to charge $40+ for a DLC bundle, with zero options to buy the content separately. Seriously, I don't think any other fighting game has ever done that. There's always an option to buy the characters separately if you want to, and that's because it's a win-win for the players and the sellers. The players get a cheaper option, and the seller gets more purchases overall, which...
And the thing is that it is a win-win for all parties involved. But the leaders that are making this choice are only thinking about the short term. They're thinking about the what if they don't buy, as opposed to recognizing that what should I provide? Remember, this is a games as a service business, right? So provide your fucking service.
Which means more money overall. It's not rocket science. Whoever handled this stuff with Mortal Kombat 1 needs to get replaced. Put them on a different game at the very least, because this person or possibly group of people single-handedly ruined the reputation of this series, and it's never going to be the same again. Mortal Kombat has permanently lost a huge amount of respect, and it's all their fault. Even months from now, or possibly a year from now, when the next Mortal Kombat game gets announced, guess what? There's gonna be way less excitement because nobody trusts this series anymore. But there you have it, everyone, the full story of how greed ruined Mortal Kombat 1 and also damaged the reputation of the entire series. I'm very sorry that my voice was gone and I sound completely different during this video. I hope it was possible to tolerate, and best case scenario, it made the video unique. I certainly do hope that was the case. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to come back next time, and as always,
that's the end of it. So yeah, that was TrueUnderdawg, titled Greed Kill Mortal Kombat. That's his channel. He makes great content. Guys, while I'd imagine he's probably very depressed around the ethos of... I liked Mortal Kombat 11, despite my issues. I think the game is very fun, but gameplay format to the game is very frustrating. The game didn't do a very good job of frustrating elements of the game with more fun elements. That said, it's still a good, solid fight. I say it's a genuinely bad fighting game, but had a lot of predatory. It is the best selling Mortal. Had the best marketing, has the best visual design, some of the most consumer friendly day one release content right off the bat. That got worse as time went on, but they did a great job. That said, with how Mortal Kombat 11 was a decline, and it wasn't a steep decline, it was steep enough, and then this significant drop off with Mortal Kombat 1, people are not going to trust the brand. So even if they do a great game the next time around, probably will not sell nearly as well as Mortal Kombat. It'll probably be competitive, sell well, make a profit, but it will never sell as well until they rebuild that trust over a period of time. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is being really, really consumer friendly. They're going to have to work their asses off, really ambitious with their next game. Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think Ed Boon or anyone that's in charge should make that choice. I think that they should work on a separate IP. Take time away from Mortal Kombat. Get yourself to take a step back from the and analyze what went wrong, what can we learn from it, make sure that we can implement better systems in place, and have a clearer vision for the future, but also allow time to breathe between you and whoever you're producing. that was pulling the strings. Because if you do it now, guarantee it, those same people that are in charge, they're going to do it again. Give yourself the breathing space to get away from it. Obviously, can't, if they ask for another Mortal Kombat game, you can't do much about it, but fight for that. Argue for it. We'll see what happens. Obviously, sad to see a titan of a fighting game collapse in front of us like this, but this happens. Every video game has this experience where it eventually goes on long enough where it becomes a success until eventually it becomes its own villain. It's literally the Batman, the Dark Knight saying, "You live long enough to see yourself become." That's what happens to almost every video. I realized that after I saw like CD Projekt Red do its chicanery with Cyberpunk 26. Cyberpunk. I had nothing but complete faith when they were always doing their marketing campaigns. And then they fucking blew it up in our face and just lied to us. Wow. Anyone could do that. Anyone can be a great development team and just totally fuck you up. Because they don't, it's usually not in their call. It's not the developers that are the managers. Managers don't always have the same envision as the developers. Most of the time they don't. Well, this is where we part ways. Thank you all for joining me today. I think it's been a lot of rivals. This was a fun discussion. And I will catch you. Till then, bye-bye.